talking to us, sir. So, what will be your overall reaction on this budget?
Well, I think this budget is excellent. It shows the confidence of the government in industry and the corporate world, that it has faith that that the industry and corporate world will deliver. In the last year, they gave various concessions, and I think it is probably from the results they're encouraged to continue those concessions and give even more concessions to boost and continue the growth in the Indian economy.
Sir, anything from the MSME sector? What you cater about it? The you anything the finance minister said on this?
I think one must remember that in her more or less opening remarks, the finance minister mentioned MSMEs along with agriculture as one of the three major drivers of growth going forward. Then, going forward, she identified or she announced that the turnover limits of MSMEs for qualifying as an MSME would be increased. Micro enterprises that were earlier at 5 crores would now be doubled with turnover up to 10 crores. The small enterprises from 50 crores go up to 100 crores, and the medium sector from 250 crores to 500 crores. Now, obviously, there is a feeling, and it must be based on the data she has got, that these various sectors have high growth potential and have utilized the funding and concessions and schemes of the government in a good way to further the growth of the country. For example, earlier, under the earlier limits, the contribution of MSMEs to the GDP, manufacturing GDP, was about 45%. I would be surprised if under the new norms, we do not start touching close to 60%. In terms of exports, that was earlier 35%. That is likely to go up to 50%. So these are sectors which the FM has recognized are very, very important for the economy, both for domestic supply as well as for exports. I hope we will be able to live up to these expectations. And she has announced a number of schemes which will help. For example, apart from helping the larger MSMEs in the micro sector, she's announced the granting of credit cards. She's talked about helping street vendors. So it is a penetrative scheme of the government. MSMEs in particular have another aspect which she has touched upon, which is the need to reach out of the urban areas into the rural areas and to encourage people living there to look at migration to the cities as an option and not a necessity. So this would mean that we want the economic growth not to be concentrated in a few metropolitan cities or tier 1 cities, but to get diffused throughout the country. And I think that is something MSMEs are very capable of doing, because we have an outreach through MSMEs at the tier 2 levels and in the villages. So that is something which we have to encourage. It is very good that the government recognizes that, is encouraging it, and I'm sure the MSMEs will deliver on that expectation and desire and support the government fully in this.
Sir, one more thing is that the one of the biggest thing I guess from the budget is the income tax slab. What you will think that is the positive, I guess.
Well, the reduction in the income tax slab is aimed at leaving more money and more disposable money in the hands of the salaried people and those who are part of the formal economy. There's always been a fear in the past that a lot of people who are outside of the formal economy, if you look at the data presented yesterday by the economic advisor, there's been a tremendous growth in personal income tax returns and earnings of the government from personal income tax. That shows that people are willing to come forward into the formal economy. Now, I think that means that they are no longer worried that if they get into the formal economy, they will be taxed, and taxed in a way which will leave them with too little money in their own hands. Government obviously believes that in return for having come into the formal economy, there should be a concession made to them so that they have more disposable income, and that disposable income in turn will translate into more demand. The more demand will translate into more consumption, and more consumption is bound to support industry. And we hope that being diffused at the rural level and the tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities, the demand will benefit the MSMEs which are operating in those areas and not just the large corporates. So I think that will be very, very beneficial for everybody. Thank you.
My last question will be anything finance minister missed that you had expected from this budget?
I would not say we expected, but we had hoped. So the small difference there. We had hoped that some sort of concessions and tax would be allowed for MSMEs or industry in general, what it spends on R&D, modernization, and expansion. That is something which is missing because these are all expenses which should be supported and encouraged by some kind of a tax break. Many years ago, there used to be a concession on tax or a double write-off for any R&D expenditure where you were allowed to take off twice the amount you spent on R&D from your earnings and therefore pay less tax on that. We've been asking for that and that seems to be missing. I hope that will be reconsidered because as growth takes place, we expect that it'll have to be supported by more R&D and more modernization, and there should be some incentives for going in that direction or to people who go in that direction already.
Thank you, sir. To talk.